Are you afraid of your own kids? Maybe you should be. According to Wikipedia, patricide is the act of murdering one's father. Matricide is the act of murdering one's mother. And parricide is the act of murdering both parents or a close relative. This crime has become more common than we care to discuss. Are these kids abused? Do they show signs of losing it? From parenting extremes to severe cases of abuse to kids just plain zapping out. Let's take a look at a few cases of patricide, matricide, and parricide. Patricide is the act of killing one's father. In many cultures and religions, patricide was considered one of the worst sins.
New York society murder that rocked the Upper East Side of the city. The horrifying shooting death of hedge fund banker Thomas Gilbert sent shockwaves through the Big Apple's upper crust. The alleged gunman, his son Tommy Jr., who was arrested and charged with the murder. Now his case is about to go to trial as we learn more about what drove a Park Avenue prince to patricide.
His name is Thomas Gilbert Jr. He may still be in the area, unknown right now if he's armed or not.
The dramatic call that fateful night in January 2015. Detectives say Gilbert went to his parents' swanky East Side home, then asked his mother to leave the apartment to get some food. Police say he then shot his namesake father, Thomas Gilbert Sr., a powerful hedge fund manager, in the head after a dispute over money. 15 minutes later, Tommy's former debutante mother returned to find the gruesome scene and her son gone.
It came to 911. It was said the husband was shot by her son.
The gun laying where it was didn't seem as a self-inflicted wound.
Detectives arrested Gilbert at his apartment in the Chelsea section of Manhattan. They also found ammunition, including hollow point bullets, a laser gun sight, handcuffs, a credit card skimming device, and 21 blank credit cards.
He never verbalized any real anger towards his father. Not real anger, just, dismay that he couldn't live up to his father's expectations.
Socialite Anna Rothschild dated the 30-year-old Tommy Gilbert Jr. for several months in 2014.
It was a very strained relationship that the father felt he never did anything that was good enough.
Behind the smile was a mentally fragile and troubled soul. At the time of the murder, Tommy Gilbert was also unemployed and in debt. Authorities believe the motive might be related to the fact that Gilbert Sr. had planned to cut his son's funding.
I think it was long-term resentment and anger that pushed him over the brink.
One of the key witnesses expected to take the stand in the trial is Tommy's mother, Shelley, who will testify against her own son.
Let's go to the moment that you pulled the trigger and killed your father. Did you intend to kill him then?
No. I had no intention of taking his life. I wanted him to know that when I said, we're leaving and this is going to stop, that I meant it. And I wanted to be a threat, but I didn't mean to harm him.
You go back to the house. He is semi-conscious on the couch. He's been drinking, as he usually was. What happens then?
The gun was downstairs, and I think I just went back to that moment where I saw him dragging my sister into his bedroom, and I just stepped over a line that no one should have to step over.
And you shot him?
And I shot him.
The first shot doesn't kill him. He does what? How does he react?
He didn't realize that he had been shot, and he woke up screaming my name, sat up saying my name. And so, I was terrified and immediately remorseful for what had happened. And I went and turned on the porch light and opened the door and was going to find a phone to call an ambulance. And then he just started calling me and Christy all kinds of names and blamed us for the ambulance taking too long to come. Earlier, during the altercation that had happened, he took all the phones and ripped them out of the wall and had hid them. So when I went to go find a phone to save his life, I couldn't find it. And he started calling me all kinds of whores and bitches and told me to just wait until he got up from that couch. And I knew that if he ever got up, that we would die.
So what did you do?
I shot him a second time.
In the head this time?
I didn't know where it was. I had placed the gun on a ledge behind him and just closed my eyes and pulled the trigger. And I just figured whatever happened would happen.
Matricide, the killing of one's mother.
Out about a weekend murder in Scotia. Police there say they had to tase the suspect, the dead woman's son, after he threatened them with a knife. 20-year-old Jeffrey Steele is charged with second-degree murder in the death of his mother. Police say he stabbed Teresa Bernard just after 2 a.m. Sunday in her home off North Ballston Avenue. Steele's stepfather found her dead in the bed. As Steele was leaving the scene, a Scotia police officer noticed him. He took off running and was soon cornered at a nearby auto shop. Police say Steele raised a knife, resulting in him being tased.
I do believe he would have been a threat, because you're talking about someone who just committed a vicious crime with a dangerous instrument that he still had on him. We don't know what his state of mind immediately following that incident was, so we don't know what he would have done as he encountered anyone else.
Steele is being held without bail in the Schenectady County Jail right now. Now, this case marks the fourth homicide in our area in the past year or so in which his son has allegedly killed his mother, known as Matricide. Back in October, Carol Stanford was killed in Greenfield. Her son, Joshua McQuain, was charged with the murder. At the beginning of July, James Dibble was charged with second-degree murder in the death of his mom, Gwenda Lisman, in Fulton County. And on July 4th, police say Anthony Repp of Scotticoke attacked his mother, Cynthia Matala, and his stepfather. Both died. Tonight, Jerry Gretzinger with more on this disturbing trend.
20-year-old Jeffrey Steele stands accused of killing his mother here on Route 50 in Scotia at the home they shared for years. According to Scotia Glenville Schools, Jeffrey was enrolled but was in and out of their schools because the district wasn't sure it could meet Jeffrey's needs. In 2009, when he was 16, he was put into the GED program but had missed 20 consecutive days of school by October 9th and was kicked out. District officials say Jeffrey's mother, Teresa Bernard, had been notified multiple times about the absences.
We're doing a story about what happened at that house down the way.
Little else is known about Steele or Bernard, other than that Steele's father died years ago.
That's what I'm hearing from everybody, that nobody really knew much about them.
No, I didn't even know the family.
That was pretty much the same response we got from neighbors who live up and down the street, that no one really knew the family who lived here at this home. However, the problems that may have led to this weekend's tragedy, not unlike those that could be plaguing other families. Dr. Rudy Neidiger says for someone to kill, there's clearly a disruption in logical thought, deeply rooted in psychological issues. However, he believes there may be a reason why we see more violent acts now than in the past.
Many kids today have much more contact and exposure with electronic kinds of interactions than they do with people. And I think that we're starting to see some evidence that kids who are growing up in this electronic age do not deal as effectively with other people in some circumstances because they don't have as much experience.
Jerry Gretzinger, CBS 6 News.
And Rudy Neidiger says he has no direct knowledge of Steele or Bernard. He says he has seen several cases where young people feel they can only interact with others using electronic devices and social media.
The circumstances of this crime are both shocking and difficult to comprehend. We now know that Daniel Bartland planned to kill his mum. He then executed the killing in a violent attack on her, and then he took a number of steps to try and cover this up by both burning her body and then lying consistently throughout the police investigation. It was only after we spoke to other witnesses that we realised his account was not consistent, and he was then arrested. Following his arrest, we reviewed his computer and found that it deleted a story where a character called Daniel Bartland killed his mother in exactly the same circumstances. As I've said, this is a shocking investigation and has shocked me personally, but the biggest impact is bound to be on Daniel's family, Daniel and Jacqueline's family. Having spent time with them throughout the investigation and the subsequent proceedings, it's fair to say that they probably never come to terms with what's happened to them. There's no evidence to suggest Jackie was anything other than a loving mum and loved and supported Daniel throughout his life.
Parricide, the act of killing both parents or a close relative.
So this case starts with really three people. Some other people were involved, but it mostly involves three people. Sarah Marie Johnson, who at the time in 2003 was 16 years old, her father Alan Johnson, who was 46 years old, and Diane Johnson, who was 52 years old. They lived in Bellevue, Idaho, and they'd been married for 20 years. So we see the case really starts early on September 2nd, 2003. We see that Sarah Johnson runs out of her home screaming for help. She runs over to a neighbor's house, and she says that her parents have just been murdered. When the police arrived, they found Diane Johnson, Sarah Johnson's mother, lying under the covers in her bed, and she was deceased, and most of her head was missing. They also found Alan Johnson lying next to the bed, apparently dead from a gunshot wound to the chest. It appears that Alan stepped out of the shower because he was still wet, so he stepped out of the shower, he was shot, and then managed to walk into the bedroom where he collapsed. Now, in a trash can outside the Johnsons' home, the police recovered a pink bathrobe and two gloves, a right-handed latex glove and a left-handed leather glove. Now, inside the house, they also found a great deal of evidence, including biological material, blood spatters, and tissue and bone fragments that went from the Johnsons' bedroom into the hallway and across into Sarah Johnson's bedroom. So Sarah Johnson's bedroom was across from her parents' bedroom. They also recovered a weapon at the scene, a .264 Winchester Magnum rifle, which is a rifle that has quite a bit of recoil, and this plays a part later on in the trial. This was found in the master bedroom. The police also recovered two butcher knives, and the tips of these knives were touching, and they were placed at the end of the Johnsons' bed. There was no evidence of forced entry into the house, but the house was never locked anyway, so that really didn't contribute much to the investigation. When Sarah first talked to the police, she gave several different stories, 5 different accounts actually. Now, one of the key inconsistencies here was that she said that her room was closed, her bedroom door was closed, but they found biological evidence that it was not, meaning they found DNA, blood splatter, and bone tissue in her room from the homicide. So it turns out her door must have been opened. Now, this is just one inconsistency, but several were discovered in her story. She admitted that the pink robe belonged to her, but she denied knowing how it ended up in the trash can. And when the police first asked about the robe, the way Sarah responded was that she did not kill her parents. And the police found this to be kind of an interesting way to approach that question. So they found it odd. Now, this is an interesting piece here because I find that police often do this in these type of cases. They look at the human behavior side and they say, well, it doesn't really fit based on what was going on. So her behavior may have been odd, but if her parents were just murdered and she wasn't the perpetrator, then it's hard to know how somebody should react. People react to stress in a lot of different ways. But of course, this was used against her in the trial later on. Now, the rifle I mentioned just a moment ago that was used to kill the Johnsons belonged to somebody that they rented a garage apartment to. His name was Mel Spiegel. He had an alibi. He was away from that area during the time of the murders. He did indicate, however, that it was his rifle and he kept it unlocked in his apartment, and Sarah Johnson had access to that apartment. When the police interviewed the friends and neighbors, they tended to think that Sarah Johnson was infatuated with a 18-year-old boyfriend named Bruno Santos. So Bruno Santos became kind of a key suspect early on. These two had been dating for about 3 months before the murder of the Johnsons, and they did not approve of him for a variety of reasons. On August 29th, which was just a few days before the murders, Sarah told her parents she'd be spending the night with friends, but instead she spent the night with Bruno Santos. And when her parents found out, her father went to look for her the next day and confronted Santos and brought her home, and she was grounded from that point on. Now later on, according to witness testimony, we found out that Sarah seemed to take this punishment really well, unusually well. Usually she'd be upset when something like this happened, and she didn't seem to be upset. So later on, when the police had an opportunity to analyze the evidence, there was DNA testing done that connected the robe to Sarah Johnson and the gloves to Sarah Johnson. Later on, they would also find a shower cap that had been flushed down the toilet. After this, Sarah Johnson was charged with first-degree murder.
Good evening, I'm Ton Trung. Natalie has the evening off. A manhunt continues tonight after a college student in central Michigan reportedly shot and killed his parents on campus. Authorities are searching for 19-year-old James Davis Jr. Police say around 8:30 this morning he opened fire inside his dorm at Central Michigan University. The victims have been identified as James Davis Sr. and Diva Davis, the suspect's parents. Sources say the parents had come to pick him up for spring break. Locally, we're learning more about a Jefferson Parish man who's accused of killing his mother. Investigators say 21-year-old Chad McAvoy admitted to killing his mother yesterday afternoon inside of the family's home in the 4800 block of Loveland Street in Metairie. The Jefferson Parish coroner says 42-year-old Connie McAvoy died from a gunshot wound to the back.
She was a very loving, caring person. She helped everybody in the family.
Loved ones of Connie McAvoy said there had been tension in the family. Chad McAvoy was struggling to find work and his father reportedly wanted a divorce. McAvoy was booked on one count of second-degree murder. The two killings brings up the question, why would someone want to kill the person that gave them life? Carice Jackman spoke with a forensic psychiatrist and a criminologist about this issue. Carice?
Yeah, Ton, of course, we don't know exactly what led up to the deaths in Metairie and Michigan, but those we spoke with say it definitely brings up the conversation about what triggers a child to do something like this.
In less than 24 hours, two men each allegedly murdered the people who gave them life. One here in Metairie, the other in Michigan. Forensic psychologist Dr. Sarah DeLand says although we don't know specifically what triggered these two men, warning signs are often there.
Unfortunately, we've ended up with a number of people in the forensic mental health system who never came to mental health treatment until something bad like this happened.
While situations may differ, there are a few common factors.
One thing is that I run across the most intensely is somebody that has a mental illness, and they're psychotic. Mainly they get paranoid, and they think maybe their parents or those closest to them are trying to do something to them.
Substance abuse or abuse in the household could also play a role.
Sometimes we see that there's been a long history of abuse, and finally, they just snap.
Then there are times, Dr. DeLand says, where the suspect shows signs of irritability or withdrawal, no matter if they grew up rich, poor, black, or white.
It cuts across all socioeconomic boundaries. There may be different motivations, although if it's due to mental health or substance use, it doesn't really matter.
Dr. Ashraf Ismail, criminal justice professor at Dillard University, says this impulsive act of violence not only needs to be monitored, but discussed more.
That middle ground in terms of how to address this is something we have to deal with because we're seeing more of this and more shootings, whether it's young people and in general.
Statistics on kids committing violence against their parents are hard to find, but in a study 6 years ago, Kathleen Hyde, a criminology professor at the University of Southern Florida, published a book on the subject and found that on average, 5 parents are killed by their biological children in the United States every week. Ton?
Studies show that abuse, mental illness, and antisocial tendencies help explain why children kill their parents. So I say this to you. You or someone you know needs help, please ask for it. because I never want to have to tell your story.